It's a little different of trying to make ourselves more or less, not really part of the period, but kind of recreate something that's there. My teammate Sam, she basically was acting as if she was looking for her child. So she was asking if there was anything in here that could help her find her child, and if there was anybody that could help do anything of that. While doing this, we were sitting right over on this side. Suddenly something fell. Sounded like it fell. Big bang over here. Huge. Went over, didn't find anything. We kind of just noted in our notes, heard a bang when we talked about this and all the rest. Went on our merry way, didn't say anything else. Another team, Fairless Hills, came rolling in here. They had 2 members in here. They started a line of questioning, and the line of questioning eventually went towards the little girl and all the rest. All of a sudden, something came flying from that room over into this room, boom, 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 right next to them. In which case, we have 2 teams that were here within an 8-week period that have had something that kind of went off into that thing during a time when they were questioning or doing an EVP session, as we call it, that actually turned up as basically being very odd, very strange. My own personal experience here, and like I said, I'm a very skeptical person. I'll be absolutely honest with you. I am not someone that's is going to look at something I supposedly see and see something and say shadow people and this exists. I was standing right where he was, and there's a little opening right up there. If you notice, it's back further. And while I was sitting here, we were on a break, and I felt like something was watching me. And you get that feeling, and sometimes you're looking around a crew, and somebody is watching. Hey, you're looking at me, okay, whatever, and you continue on. In this case, I was looking up, don't know why I decided to look up. Didn't really have a reason to look up, just kind of was like looking around, and I look up, and it literally looked like something was like that looking down. I didn't catch this out the corner of my eye. I actually looked at this for a second. It was probably a good second, and kind of like rash, like, what? Okay, is that? And then it peeled back, nothing there, gone. In which case, I walked up the steps, was like, whatever. Then I came back down and was like, it had to be a car. Car had to go by, and it had to mess the windows up. Something's going on. Literally sat here for 20 minutes trying to figure out what it was. Never figured it out. Essentially, it was like, well, shadow people, I hear about it, but, I've heard it, and sometimes I can recreate it and say, nah, that's not a shadow person. That's I can see this, and there's a lighting effect. In this case, I asked the caretaker of the place, you ever have anything go on up there, Well, a lot of people see weird stuff like, it looks like shadows or something. Okay, great. Ding, got it. Onward to the next one. And a recent one that was very interesting, one of the most interesting ones, is that they had a group of workers here that were working on the roof. They tore apart a section of the roof to basically, re-roof it. These workers didn't speak any English. Most of them were Hispanic. They basically were part of this. They never really said anything, but they talked to the foreman. They saw what they thought were kids playing here, and they saw what they thought was a woman running back and forth frantically throughout these areas, like fast. Couldn't understand what it was. Went to the foreman and said to the foreman, what's up with this family, and why are they wandering around this place in the middle of the daytime? They could get hurt because we're up there on the roof and things could fall and all the rest of the stuff. The foreman's like, I don't know, but I'll find out. I'll go ask the board. Goes to Florence. Florence like, no one lives here. No one's done any of that. In which case he said, well, I'm not going to tell them so that they actually finish your roof, because otherwise they're not coming back. So that little piece leaves you with multiple people seeing a little girl from the residence, from here, some of the groups having very weird encounters here, all going together. Can you say it's paranormal? I'd say there's something weird going on here, and I'm saying some people are really seeing it, but a lot of the residents can give you without a doubt, they'll have their own interpretations of like what's happened, but it's all very similar. 2 little boys that we had here earlier were on the very first tour. They both claimed that when they were outside, they could have sworn they saw like a little kid up in. They were like, "What's a little kid going up there?" And we're like, there was nobody up there because we were up here keeping people out of here in the morning because people were kind of wandering in before we were doing the tours. So I was sitting on the steps most of the morning, basically making sure no one went up it. So there was no kid up here, and yet two little kids
boys
who haven't been on the tour just thought they saw a little kid up here and thought it was neat and was like, we were hoping we'd come up here because there was a little kid up here earlier. No, actually there wasn't a little kid up here earlier. You're the first tour. Guys,
he said to come on.
They need you down here, Lisa.
He said, come on.
He's waiting for you.
if you remember when I told you about the electronic teams will walk through here, see that, and be like, oh my God, there's a ghost in here. Not necessarily, but there's some interesting tidbits with this. Some cases, all of a sudden it's dead, you don't know why, and then something happens. In this case, there's a large bunch of activity here, so basically the large electromagnetic activity could possibly field some of that stuff. The problem is you can't check it on that gauge. That gauge is going to be put out. However, some people have seen, it's been noted by two different instances, that were paranormal groups, more or less. One was a psychic and one was a paranormal group. And then also other people just wandering through the building have explained, I've seen a man in this corner. And at this time he's in the corner, he never pays attention to you, he never does anything. He's sitting there with a quill and he basically is in old colonial garb and it looks like he's writing something. Never says anything to anybody, never does anything to anybody, just sits there writing his quill. It's what they would call like residual haunting. It basically means that it's not going to interact with you, it's just going to replay that period of its life over and over and over and over again. Why? Nobody knows. Nobody knows what that's for. Maybe it's like a record player and it just kind of keeps playing, but nobody really knows. Maybe something has to happen, a variable that changes it. However, in this case, they had a psychic come through this weekend. One of the more ones that were like, publicized here. I'm not going to say who or any of that because they can tell their story. They came in and the first thing they felt, they said, there's a man over in that corner. Just never knew anything about this building. Man in the corner. And basically didn't know that there was a high power line there, but turned around and was like, yeah, for some reason there's like some energy in this room. I get the feeling that he grabs the energy and then he runs around and he messes with people throughout the house. That's what he says. Never met the paranormal crew that saw that or noted that, and several of the residents have noted that, the tours have noted that, and yet none of that goes in there. In our case, one of the things that we do as a paranormal crew is we usually have like a joint session. This is where we take every investigator that's in our building, come in and we sit in a room somewhere in the place that's known to have activity. This was one of the rooms that was known. We had that table over there, and we had chairs around it. We probably had 10 investigators. We do what we basically call it a group session. Group session for us is kind of like you just lay back and you just talk like you're in a family atmosphere. Just like if we were talking at a picnic table, whatever, about whatever events that come into our head, whatever stuff. It could be about the house, it could be about what flavor Mountain Dew you're drinking, it could be, hey, did you see the newest commercial for GM? It was kind of cool, I had a cat and it did this. This is the type of stupid stuff that we'll talk about here. However, whenever we do it, it's almost as if we get more activity, only because we think, there's not somebody running around snapping pictures, doing this and acting this, and they're saying, who are you? What are you doing here? Why are you there? What's this? What's it? Are you a man? Are you a woman? Are you a child? Are you this? It's kind of like, you think about that if somebody came at you that way, I might not actually answer the questions either. I might be like, forget that. When we're sitting here in this, we're not asking anybody any questions. We're just kind of hanging out. In that case, the day that we were here, which was really funny, everyone was in here, and there's some people that are back there. There's a motion detector that sits there. Some of you may have heard it when you walk through. It makes a beep beep sound. Sometimes when that door moves, because that door over there is open, it'll move. You'll hear the beep beep sound. In our case, this is 2 a.m. when we're holding this little group. Everyone's in here. No one's in the way of the lens, and it goes off. So we get up. A couple of us get up and like, check that out. Check it out. Nothing. Come back. 5 minutes later, boom, happens again. Get up, check it out, nothing. Finally, third time, beeps again. Before it beeps again, somebody in the group basically is like, yeah, do something else to make it know that we know that it's you. Beeps again, we hear footsteps that go across the kitchen area right there. In which case it's just like dun 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 dun, away from the room. People get up, look at it, nothing. So as paranormal investigators, we basically go, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Now we're going to have to grill the owner about this. We go outside because the caretaker who does the historic tours, John Snow, he was outside and we're like, John, you ever have a problem with that thing? No, not really. It's here for when do this. Occasionally, sometimes one of the neighbor's cats will set it off if he's downstairs if the door's open. Like, okay, did you ever have it happen when it's this? No. Did you ever have it when it's this? Do you ever have any false alarms to the police? Do you have any of this? Do you have any of this? So we do the same thing to him that we do to ghosts. We just start asking 8 million questions until he gets crazy. It's like, whoa! In which case, never had a problem with that. It is sensitive, but mostly it picks up movement. It doesn't necessarily just go off. He's never had a problem with it, and they've never had the cops out here unless it's been a legitimate movement in that room. In this case, there were no investigators. John was outside. There was nothing going on here. It went off 3 times. The 3rd time it made footsteps out the door. That was what we considered very odd. One of the teams here also mentions about seeing the little girl in this room.